Hey, you guys, what's going on? So today I wanted to talk about the bullet fragment that came from the Charlie Kirk assassination. I'm sure you've heard that it didn't match the rifle. The ATF tested it. They weren't able to conclusively link it to the rifle that Tyler Robinson used. That does not mean that it didn't come from the rifle, as a lot of people are framing it. And we're also going to watch a little bit of Candace Owens' response to this news and kind of chip away at it a little bit. It's usually pretty hard for me to watch Candace. I watch her when there's something going around and she's saying things. I want to hear it from the horse's mouth rather than just hearing other people talk about it. If it's a situation like that, I go directly to her show and I listen to her. If you guys can bear with me a little bit, we'll watch a little bit of what she has to say about this and then we'll talk about it. Let's get into it.
All right, you guys, happy Tuesday indeed. I really did have the best day ever yesterday. I mean, foremost, the news broke about the Freemason hit squad in France. Then we wrap up the episode yesterday and the internet explodes because the ATF in the Tyler Robinson case cannot connect the gun to him. Oh, okay, interesting. What does it all mean? You have a bunch of people racing. Ooh, could you imagine the PR cash they are spending right now? Racing to tell you, this is a big nothing burger. Who cares if we can't connect the gun to the bullet fragment? Okay, we care, I care, because we were right.
Okay, so first off, it is a big nothing burger.
You get nothing!
So just to be clear about this, in around 30% or so of cases, this happens, where they're not able to conclusively link the fragment of a bullet to the rifle that was used. It's not uncommon at all. It doesn't mean that it wasn't the rifle that was used, but of course, Candace has a narrative, and no matter what happens, that's the lens that she's going to view the evidence through, and nobody can change her mind. To be completely honest with you guys, I don't know if she does or if she doesn't believe this stuff, but what I've learned about Candace is that Candace isn't a stupid person. I mean, okay, hold on. So she may not be very intelligent in some ways, but she's very intelligent in other ways. She's very good with her words. She's very manipulative and she knows what she's doing. Maybe she does actually believe that this wasn't really done by Tyler Robinson. Maybe she's just trying to destroy everything Charlie Kirk built, destroy his wife, and I really don't know. But what I do know is that the things that she says are nonsense.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
In case you guys didn't know, a .30-06 was used to shoot Charlie Kirk. It was a soft round, and when it hit Charlie, it hit his bone, and it smashed, it expanded. When that happens, the damage to the fragments makes it difficult to be able to see those microscopic marks and match them to the rifle. As I already said, this is very common. This happens a lot. So is it a nothing burger?
Nothing!
You bet. The prosecution has so much evidence on this guy that the bullet fragment is... they don't even need it. It's neither here nor there. The evidence is so conclusive that it's basically irrelevant. So, okay, let's keep going. And look, actually real quick, I just want to point something out to you guys. Look at the name of this episode. Prove me wrong. Tyler Robinson is a patsy. Doesn't that just seem so disrespectful? Charlie's thing was prove me wrong. It's like a slap in the face to Charlie and everything he built.
And we wanted to make sure that we took the time to actually read through the court filings, and we're going to take you through them. And if I'm being honest, there is something that is buried in these filings that not even Tyler Robinson's defense team caught. And we did. And in my opinion, it is definitive proof that Tyler Robinson is a patsy. The feds are just putting this on him. And I do mean the FBI. From JFK to MLK, now to CJK. This is, in my opinion, an undeniable state.
Oh my gosh, 3 Ks, you guys. The KKK's involved. I knew it the whole time.
Killing. Welcome back to Candace.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and skip forward to where she talks about the bullet fragment, and I won't make you guys watch the whole video. Don't worry.
So the big news yesterday was that the bullet, which has now been conveniently reduced to a fragment, happened very quickly over a couple of days, has come back. And the ATF has concluded that they can't connect to the gun. It's inconclusive. And now the prosecution
I'm trying not to pause it already.
Wants the corrupt FBI to conduct their own analysis. And I'm going to tell you what is very wrong with that. Because I think it's pretty clear that the feds are working with Turning Point USA. And all evidence points to the fact that the feds are dirty in this case. Like I said, I have spoken to SWAT, local police departments, sources close to the accused, UVU students, people that work at UVU. Everyone is saying the feds are a part of a broader conspiracy. And based on the evidence I am seeing and based on these filings, which I am about to show you, I believe that.
Okay. Okay. Of course she believes that because that's her narrative. That's what she's been pushing from the very beginning. Now, let me say a few things here.
All right. Let me tell you something! Let me tell you something!
So she says that the bullet was somehow reduced from a full bullet down to a fragment in just a matter of days. And that right there isn't true. When that bullet hit Charlie, it fragmented. I'm a hunter. I have a little bit of understanding about how this stuff works, okay? Tyler Robinson used a soft point bullet. When you use a bullet like that, it expands. When it hit Charlie Kirk, it hit his bone and it went into fragments. It's never been a full and intact bullet. This is why we go to the actual evidence and not just word of mouth. It's not that word of mouth isn't relevant or that it's not important ever. It's just that hard evidence is going to be much more conclusive. You can have 5 people watch the same event take place and they're all going to give you different stories. If anybody was framing this bullet as if it was an entire intact bullet, then that's just not true. They didn't know what they were talking about. Candace Owens is saying that it was miraculously reduced from a whole bullet to a fragment in just a matter of days. The bullet was always in fragments. From the time of the autopsy, we've known that the bullet was fragmented. Now, I know that people have used the phrase the bullet when talking about the bullet being examined. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean it isn't a fragment of a bullet. It's just the way people talk. Oh, they're examining the bullet that shot Charlie Kirk. That obviously doesn't mean it's a whole intact bullet. They just weren't going into specifics. Now that we can't conclude that it came from the rifle, they're being a little more specific. It's a bullet fragment. It doesn't mean that it wasn't always a fragment. They're just being more specific now so people understand why we can't match it. This is common sense. And then let me make another point, okay? Candace loves to do this. She loves to go, oh, well, I've talked to this person and this person and that person and this person's uncle, this person's uncle's boyfriend.
I met this guy who knew this guy, who knew this guy, who knew this guy.
And they all told me the same thing that I think. Yeah, of course they did. Here's the thing, you guys. The right wing has fractured. Okay, we're in 2 different camps now. How I view it is we have the MAGA right, the people who haven't changed. We're still saying and doing the same things that we were since we first started supporting Trump. Trump hasn't changed. This other section of the right is making it seem like he's changed, but they're the ones that have changed. Trump's always been pro-Israel. He's always wanted to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons. He said that from long before he was ever president. I mean, they act like he wasn't dropping bombs on Syria the second the guy got into office when he first got elected in his first term. They're acting like he wasn't taking out Iranian generals. They're acting like he hasn't been using the military in the Middle East since he first became president. The dude's the same dude.
I'm the dude.
Then you have the anti-Israel crowd. They're obsessed with Israel. They're basically the left wing of the right, which sounds funny, but hear me out. They are so obsessed with Israel that it looks like Trump derangement syndrome, but the derangement revolves around Israel. These people are so entrenched in this ideology that there's nothing you can do. No amount of facts, no amount of evidence, nothing will sway these people. Dude, 4 years ago, nobody cared about Israel. No one was against them, saying anything about them. But a lot of these people aren't thinking for themselves. They're letting the podcasters think for them. Anyway, so you have that section of the right, the anti-Israel right, and their favorite commentators are the Candaces, the Tuckers, the Nicks. Even though Nick doesn't align with Candace and Tucker on a lot of things, still the same crowd kind of bounces between these commentators here. They love Dave Smith. Basically anyone that hates Israel. And as you all know, Charlie Kirk was very pro-Israel, even though they're trying to frame it as if he left the pro-Israel side, which he didn't. That's not true. So basically, these people listen to anything Candace says. They believe everything she says. She has a very massive following. And it's a whole movement, you guys. It's a whole movement. And so, of course, Candace is going to be able to find people that she agrees with. She's going to find people on SWAT. She's going to find police officers. She's going to find UVU employees. She's going to find people that were close to Tyler Robinson. Of course, she's going to find people that agree with her. Let's not pretend that there isn't a whole section of the right wing that believes everything Candace believes. Now, the question is, are those people correct? Because here's the thing. We can also find a ton of people that are police officers, that are SWAT, that work for UVU, that were close to Tyler Robinson, that believe the complete opposite of Candace Owens. So who's right? That's why we go to the evidence. Not just word of mouth, not just, oh, this person agrees with me, it's obvious. No.
No.
You guys, just look at Joe Kent. I mean, Joe Kent stepped down from being the director of counterterrorism. Then he immediately goes on Tucker and starts spewing out the same rhetoric that Candace is spewing out, the same rhetoric that Tucker's spewing out. It's because he's part of that movement. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean he's right. He's part of that movement. These people are convinced of this stuff. They believe it. But you can't forget there's a whole other side that disagrees with them. Both sides can't be true when they're saying contrary things. It violates the law of non-contradiction. We have to look at the evidence. But Joe Kent was likely leaking stuff to Candace Owens. It looks like he was. So we already know that he was wrapped in all this Candace stuff. You can't just believe people just because they were in positions of authority. Candace loves going to, oh, I talked to SWAT, I talked to police. It doesn't mean they're right. Okay, let's keep going.
Are racing to delude you about this case, are making tons of claims about the recent filing. We're going to actually take you through it. Tyler Robinson's team in this filing, just, what we're looking at is they are asking for an extension. And we are going to show you the extraordinarily valid reasons as to why. At first, just want to say off top of this, I think we can all readily dismiss the repeated lie that Tyler Robinson confessed to his crime, right? He's asking for a continuation. A man who confesses a crime and says, I did it, does not request a continuation so that he can gather evidence. If he was admittedly guilty and so overwhelmingly guilty that he turned himself in and said, I did it, he would not be trying to win the case. Okay?
I know I just unpaused the video. Hear me out. I'll be fast. What she's saying here is so ridiculous that I can't even wrap my mind around it.
This is ludicrous.
I did 3 years in prison, fixed. I know this sounds terrible. This was a decade ago. It was a heroin trafficking charge. I went to prison for 3 years for this, but thank God he saved me. I've submitted my life to Jesus Christ. He's the Lord of my life. That's behind me. But I know a thing or two about criminal court cases, okay? Not only have I gone through them a few times on my own, but I spent 3 years with guys that told me all about their cases. I've read their discoveries. I know a lot about this stuff because I've lived it. Just because somebody admitted to a crime, that doesn't mean that they will not have a defense that fights for them to win the case. Candace has to know this. She has to know this. Candace has been sued a lot. I know that's not a criminal case. I don't know if she's ever had any criminal cases or anything like that, but I know she understands court. This is why sometimes I think that maybe Candace isn't just confused or thinking something that isn't true. Sometimes I think she actually is lying because I have a hard time believing that she actually thinks this. So when a crime just goes down and somebody doesn't really have a lot of time to think and everything's piling up, they're all stressed out. They see the news showing their picture and everything's starting to stack up and they know that they're about to get caught. The guy's dad confronts him. He admits to his dad, supposedly. Why does that mean that when he goes to jail, that he's not going to have a defense trying to fight on his behalf and say that he's not guilty? Everyone has a defense when they go to court, even if they admitted that they committed the crime beforehand. This is how our justice system works. Okay, anybody that has an attorney, a defense attorney, your attorney will always tell you, even if you are guilty, even if you're dead to rights, even if you admitted it to the police officers, and they have recordings of it, your defense attorney will still tell you to plead not guilty. They will always do that. And it's because they're trying to win the case. And even if they can't win the case because you've admitted your crime, they're going to attempt to get you the best deal they can. See, the prosecutors don't want to go to trial a lot of times. They want people to take the conviction. They'll offer them a little bit of a better deal. Like, let's say Tyler Robinson has a death penalty hanging over his head, and that's what the prosecution's going for. Well, the defense is going to fight back as hard as they can, and they're going to try to get Tyler Robinson a better deal. Even if he's guilty and they know they don't have a good case, they're going to try to get him a better deal because the prosecutors don't want to go to trial. They don't want to cost the state more money. They just want their conviction, right? And so in a lot of cases, the defense will fight back and then the prosecution will be like, listen, if you guys will just take life in prison, we'll throw out the death penalty if he will just plead guilty on this. This is the way it works. This is how it always works. It almost never happens that somebody comes up and says, Judge, I'm guilty. I don't want to go through the court process. Tyler Robinson is clearly somebody that's not well in his head. He's probably a sociopath or a psychopath. But nobody wants to spend their whole life in prison. Even if he admitted to his dad in the moment that he did this, he hadn't had a taste of jail yet. Now he's been to jail. And he's probably thinking to himself, this sucks. I don't like this.
I don't like them.
And he's probably thinking to himself, I don't want to die. I don't want the death penalty. So Candace is ridiculous in claiming that because his defense is fighting on his behalf, that he didn't admit he was guilty. Spare me. I mean, Candace denying all of the evidence for Tyler Robinson committing the crime already makes her seem very silly. So, who knows? Maybe she's lying, maybe she's not. But this right here, what she just said is so ridiculous. All right, let's continue.
Why are they requesting the continuation? They make it very clear because discovery is missing. Discovery in a case is when you accuse me of something and then I say, okay, I want to see your text messages from September 10th. I want to see your text messages from September 8th. And you have to give them to me, right? I'm the defense. You got to give those to me. They're saying that they can't prepare a defense until they receive all of the items that they have requested from the prosecution. They haven't delivered them to them, okay? Requesting a continuation is so beyond standard in proceedings. I have filed for them myself. I filed for them in the Brigitte case. It is so beyond standard that you should be offended to any person who is trying to make that scandalous or purport otherwise. So we're going to go through this filing together. It's essentially 28 pages plus a ton of exhibits. Let's look at this document, okay? And Sky, I'm going to pull it up on my page just so I don't have to squint and read.
So I've actually already watched this part of the video. And we're going to go ahead and skip past this and get to the part where she's talking about the FBI taking over the bullet fragment test.
I want you to go back into your mind when Erica got up and she did this news clip and she was like, I would like this to be rushed. Like, I want the case to go by quickly. I want to, write for this to go. And we were like, what's that about? And I will also remind you that when I sat down with Erica, I explained to you that her lawyer told me that right now we don't have any evidence. The way that this works is that now the state's going to go out and they're going to find the evidence. And then once we have the evidence, they're going to give it to Tyler Robinson's team, who's going to be able to draft some sort of a response to the evidence. And then we have the preliminary hearing. Okay. So that is what they are going to say. They're going to tell you what Erica's team did, what the state did. In total, they're referring to Tyler Robinson's team, has received approximately 20,000 files, excluding digital electronic discovery, which was provided on a hard drive during that meeting on March 12th. So when they were conferring, now initially they had files, which were 61,500 pages in total before that March 12th meeting. They had audio files that were 31 hours in total length. So they're going through all that. They were also given more than 5,000 video files containing more than 700 hours of video until March 12th when they conferred. And then they handed them this little drive. And guess how much was on that drive on March 12th? It amounts to approximately 12 terabytes of data and over 600,000 files. So they have less than 2 months to go. They've had all of this time since September to deliver them all of this data for them to go through. And they waited until March 12th and they handed them a drive and they said, here are 600,000 files. See you in May. That is a strategy.
Yes, okay? It is.
That is
That's right.
A dump when you know they are not going to be able to go through everything and see what you have. You're giving them so much. And it is a strategy people do. When people are subpoenaed and they fight the subpoena, like, oh, I get your text messages for 2 years. Remember when Blake Lively requested that for me? And I'm like, I don't want to give it. And then the judge says, no, you have to give it. They will then give them more than they even asked for. I'll give you every email, text, because somewhere buried in there is what you need, but you're not going to have the time to find that. You don't have the force behind you. This is going to take 800 paralegals working for 800 hours each in order for you to go through all of this. That is what this looks like to me. Why are you waiting until March 12th? This is a very bad strategy. I mean, I'm actually going to say it's an immoral strategy to dump this on them. Okay? 600,000 files after first giving them 20,000 files until March 12th. Stop.
She's acting like this is an immoral strategy. This is what they do. This is how court goes. The prosecution and the defense don't want to help each other unless you have a public defender. That's why inmates call them public pretenders. If you don't have a public defender, then of course, the prosecution and the defense aren't going to work together. They're going to try to make the case harder on one another. The objective is to win. There's a good chance the judge is going to give them a continuation. And then, what's the deal? What's the problem?
What the problem is?
And to be clear, them dumping 600,000 files on the defense doesn't mean that there's no evidence. We can look at the evidence and see that it's overwhelming. We can see it with our own eyes, but this is just the way it plays out. This is the way it happens. This is how court works. All right, let's keep going. I'm pretty sure we're almost to the bullet fragment part. Let's go a little bit further. I'll probably skip ahead a little bit and see where we're at. Okay, this is it right here. Here's where she gets into the ATF FBI thing where they're talking about the bullet fragment.
Here is actually the craziest part of the filing that I don't think anybody noticed. Okay,
It's not that
everybody's
crazy,
talking
you
about
guys.
the ATF, but the devil is always in the details. The feds are always in the details, okay? Now, I'm going to read this. Regarding the firearm evidence, the defense has been provided with an ATF summary. Again, just a summary report, which indicates that the ATF was unable to identify the bullet recovered at autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. Although the state has not indicated an intent to produce this report at the preliminary hearing, the defense may very well decide to offer the testimony of the ATF firearm analyst as exculpatory evidence. Okay, so they met, they conferred, and they're like, okay, we haven't even received, we got a summary that like this is not matching, but we want to see the whole report. We want to see how they got there because the report will show us how they conducted this. We'll actually be able to see that bullet fragment. How big is, I don't know. We know nothing. And then Erica's team comes in, the state comes in, and they're like, it doesn't matter. We're not even going to bring up the ATF thing. So you have our word. So we're good. They're like, well, first off, why aren't you bringing that up? And it's not about whether you're good. It's about whether we're good, because that's pretty exculpatory for us. If, the gun does not fit, you must acquit. This is the purpose of a preliminary hearing, is to get a judge to just unilaterally dismiss something as an option. So what's up with that? Why are you not giving it? They're like, oh, because we're going to do some other testing down the line. Here's where it gets crucial. Pay attention. Look alive.
Pay attention,
okay?
guys. Oh my gosh.
It goes
Here
on
we
and it
go.
says, in order to make this determination, it is necessary for the defense and its firearm expert to review the ATF case file and the protocols relating to this examination, which have not yet been provided. The state has also indicated that the FBI is in the process of conducting a second comparative bullet analysis as well as a bullet lead analysis, that these analyses are not yet complete. Okay, pay attention, Tyler Robinson's defense team. I'm about to help you out in a big way.
Oh, Candace
They told
is
you that
here.
you conferred. They
She's
said,
gonna
okay,
do it.
don't
Super
worry.
Candace
We
is
got
here
it. We
to
got
save
this.
the
We're going
day.
to do a secondary thing with the feds. And like me, I'm nosy. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? The ATF is alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. That's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. If they couldn't do it, what extra power does the FBI have to do it? If the firearm people can't do it, why is this going to the FBI? So I said, what is a comparative bullet lead analysis? What is that? I need to know things. I like to learn. And lo and behold, we find out that the CBLA, the compositional analysis, is a discontinued forensic technique that analyzed trace elements, copper, arsenic, in lead to link crime scene bullets to suspects. It was primarily used by the FBI from the 1980s until 2004, but it was then abandoned in 2005 due to flawed scientific, statistical, and interpretive validity. Wait, they discontinued this like 20 years ago, 21 years ago, because they said it was flawed? And sure enough, Skylar starts looking through and he's like, yeah, no, the innocents, the people have been freed because of how flawed this was. They literally put the wrong people in prison using this technology until it became so obvious that nobody would even stand trial and back it anymore. So they just got rid of this analysis. It's been gone for 20 years. Wake up, Tyler Robinson's defense team. I know it's a lot going on, 600,000 files. This is them telling you they're going to make this bullet fit no matter what. The feds will do it. If ATF isn't going to be corrupt, we'll be corrupt. And they've been corrupt since the beginning of this. Look at this news clip explaining further why and how this technique that they're now going to employ got discredited historically and is no longer in use. Here are the reasons why it got discredited. Take a listen to this local.
Okay, we're not going to listen to the news clip because all it is just saying the same thing she already said. I just want to say this about this comparative lead analysis that the FBI is talking about doing. So first off, the FBI, this is something that they abandoned on their own. They weren't made to abandon it or anything. The FBI was just like, we're not able to really conclusively link the bullets to the guns because this isn't incredibly accurate. They discontinued it. So here's the thing. If they did this comparative bullet lead analysis, there's a good chance that they could likely link it to the same manufacturing source, that's not nothing. Maybe that won't link it to the actual gun, but here's the thing, you guys, you have to remember, the prosecution already has a ton of evidence against Tyler Robinson. Even if they aren't able to conclusively link the fragment to the rifle, at the very least, there's a good chance that they could say, hey, this fragment came from the same manufacturing source as the other rounds that we have for this 30-06. And that's not nothing. The evidence isn't as strong, but it still supports the theory that Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk. And so the prosecution doesn't even need the bullet fragment. But if the FBI is able to come back and say, hey, we were able to match this, it's just even more evidence. It doesn't hurt. But you see, you guys, in Candace's mind, what she does is she immediately goes to, it's a conspiracy. The FBI is trying to frame him. And it's like, the FBI doesn't need to frame him. The evidence is overwhelming. There's no need to frame the guy. You know, I don't know why the FBI is wanting to do a test that they already abandoned. Maybe it's for the reason I just said, just because they can at least link it to the manufacturing source, link it to the other rounds that they have for the 30-06. So they're able to say that, hey, this is the same type of metal. It's made up of the same stuff, especially since they have rounds that were left over. If they're able to link the two, that's pretty relevant. Like, let's say that lead could also link to other rounds somewhere else. Sure. But it's pretty significant that it matches the ones that they have already in their possession. I don't know how they go about doing it after it's been discontinued. We'll see what happens with that. But Candace has a worldview. She has a lens that she views things through, and the evidence is always going to point towards that. I mean, I've known that Candace has gone off the deep end for a long time. But when she brought that guy, Mitch, on her show, and he told the story about how he supposedly saw Erica Kirk and all of these other people at that military base the day before Charlie died. When he told that story and Candace put him on her show and framed it as evidence that her theories were true, that said a lot to me about who she is. Especially when it came out that Mitch was actually an abuser. Remember when the video came out of him smashing his wife's car with the hammer? And he claimed that his wife locked him in the garage like a dungeon and was like abusing him and all of this nonsense. But the real video comes out, and then Mitch's character is completely, nobody should trust this guy whatsoever. Even his family, his own son, his exes came out about him saying, no, this guy's a pathological liar. He's an abuser. And yet Candace says those things have no effect on whether or not his story's true. Yeah, they do. It has an effect on whether or not this guy is trustworthy. And he's not. He said his dad was the Zodiac killer. The guy is not trustworthy, but Candace put him on her show and used him to push her narrative, regardless of the fact that the guy is crazy and a pathological liar. If she sees those things about Mitch and still believes his story, then she's obviously not that intelligent. If she sees those things about Mitch and then backs his story up because it supports her narrative, that makes her a liar. Either way, people should not be listening to this woman.
You just beat our door in with a hammer.
Why are you videotaping me?
Why are you acting crazy? You want me to let you in and that's what you do?
I have friends that are followers of hers, and I hear them say all the time, well, she's just asking questions. She's just looking for the truth. Candace is not just asking questions. She asks what are called leading questions. Leading questions are questions that you ask to lead people into the direction that you want them to go. That's what a leading question is. And she's a professional at this. Tucker Carlson does the same thing. Like, for instance, all of this evidence against Tyler Robinson, and then here comes Candace Owens, and she's like, well, Is it possible that maybe the Jews? Oh, is it possible that maybe Erica? Look at these things from Erica's past. Look at what she did in the past. She's not a good person. Is it possible that maybe she was involved? Is it possible that maybe Turning Point employees were involved in the death of Charlie Kirk? And she acts like she's digging for the truth, but what she's doing is she's putting these things in the minds of her followers that they never would have thought of otherwise. She asks the questions in a way that lead to the conclusions that she wants them to lead to. That would be like me. Like, okay, so let's say I live in this house and I have a neighbor next door, right? And there's this punk kid that lives down the road. And we know that this kid doesn't like us because, let's say we're MAGA. We're MAGA supporters. We have Trump flags in our yard, right? And we know that this kid down the road is a leftist, doesn't like us. He's been caught vandalizing houses in the past. And then we wake up one morning and my house and my neighbor's house have both been egged. We look and we see footprints in the mud, and those footprints match the exact same kind of shoes that the kid down the road wears. It would be reasonable for us to assume that the evidence points to this kid. But then let's say I go to my neighbor and I say, hey, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about the fact that somebody threw an egg at our house, but they didn't throw bacon. And you see, eggs and bacon, those are both breakfast foods, right? But they threw an egg. They chose to throw an egg instead of a piece of bacon at our houses. You know who doesn't like bacon? The Jews. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe it was an egg instead of bacon because the person that doesn't like bacon is the one that threw the egg.
My boy's a genius.
I know that's a ridiculous analogy, but honestly, what Candace says is ridiculous. So actually, I think it fits pretty well. But my point is, see, my neighbor would have never been thinking about the Jews until I said that. Then that starts floating around in his head. Well, we thought it was this kid. What if it's not? And see, I put that thought in my neighbor's head when he never would have had it before. That's the kind of stuff that Candace Owens does. That's the kind of stuff that Tucker Carlson does. If you've ever watched Ancient Aliens, that's all that show is. It's the crazy dude with the big hair talking about the aliens. They taught people this and that. And then the narrator goes, is it possible that the aliens probed me when I was asleep? But see, people don't catch the, is it possible? They just catch the aliens probed me while I was asleep. Anyway, okay, I'm rambling now, but the point that I'm getting at here is that Candace isn't just asking questions. Candace has a narrative that she's decided to believe. She has a narrative she's decided to push, and she pushes it, but she asks questions along the way to leave breadcrumbs towards the conclusion that she wants. That's what she does. Candace's followers, people view her as the only truth teller. They trust everything she says. I mean, she can't say anything wrong. It is so weird. It's like a cult. And her followers view themselves as the ones that are asking questions. They're the ones that are breaking away from the mainstream narrative. No, they are not. These people are followers. Here's what they do. They listen to Candace, they let Candace think for them, and then they repeat what she says. They're just following Candace. That's all it is. Candace frames herself as a truth teller that's just asking questions, and then they just take all of that in, and they believe that because they listen to her, that they're the ones that are looking for the truth, that they're the ones that are willing to dig deeper. They think that just by listening to Candace, they're looking for the facts. You guys, no one cared about any of this stuff 4 years ago. Nobody cared about Israel. Nobody hated Charlie Kirk's wife. None of this existed until Candace Owens started this stuff. And obviously Tucker Carlson jumped in. I know Nick Fuentes has been on the Jew hate train for a long time, but he's been exiled from the mainstream by Charlie Kirk in large part, actually. But it wasn't until Candace, with her massive platform, and Tucker Carlson started pushing all of this anti-Jew rhetoric, and then Candace started in on Erica Kirk. All of these people just followed suit. They followed her. And this is so strange. If you guys think about it, like if you're watching my video, you're probably kind of just a MAGA conservative. I'm just a right-wing Christian. I support Israel. I have no problem with them. I love Trump. I think he's been a great president. I haven't shifted at all. These people have shifted. I'm the same guy I was. It doesn't mean I don't grow and learn, but there's something weird going on, you guys. It's like, I think it's spiritual. I really do. I think we're seeing something spiritual happen in the world. This happens with the Jews very frequently. This rise in Jew hatred, and then everyone turns on them. They end up being persecuted. This has happened all throughout history. And then the people that hate the Jews blame the Jews. I believe it's spiritual. I think the Jews are still important to God. I really do. One of these days, maybe I'll make a whole video going into the different views on the Jewish people and the different views on Israel from a Christian perspective. And I'll explain why I believe what I believe and why I think the Jews are still relevant and still important to God. But maybe we'll do that another day. But anyway, this stuff that we're seeing with Candace Owens, the rhetoric she's pushing, the people following her, I'm worried that our movement is going to fall apart because a house divided against itself cannot stand. And it's our responsibility to speak up. We need to speak up about this. I was really disappointed in Michael Knowles because Michael won't really say anything about it. See, Matt Walsh finally put out a whole video debunking Candace Owens, and I was really thankful for that, because Matt wasn't really saying anything about it either. And I think he's a good man for doing that. Matt and Michael are both Catholic. Candace is Catholic. There's some sort of camaraderie there. They really like Candace. I get that. They're friends. They're all Catholic. They all have these similar worldviews. And see, Michael Knowles is actually the godfather to Candace Owens' kid, or multiple kids. I'm not sure. But Michael Knowles would not speak out against Candace Owens for a long time. And then he kind of started getting poked, like, hey dude, what's going on? I was watching him and he finally spoke up about it, but you could tell he was more annoyed with the fact that people wanted him to speak up about it. He made it seem like the people that are talking about it and that are pushing back against Candace are really just her biggest publicists and they're doing her a favor. And he's making it seem like the reason he's silent is because he doesn't want that narrative to be pushed out any more than it already is. That by talking about it, we're just supporting Candace. And I'm sorry, I love Michael Knowles, dude. I watch him all the time. He's one of my favorites. He's a great guy. I don't agree with him on everything. He's Catholic, I'm not. But when he said that, I thought to myself, bro, your entire platform exists to push back against popular narratives that are being pushed by the other side. And you're saying that pushing back against these heinous and absolutely atrocious lies coming from Candace Owens, you're saying that we shouldn't be doing it because it's just helping her? No, bro. I just can't believe he said that. We need to speak up. We need to tell the truth because a lot of people are listening to this narrative. A lot of people are hearing Candace and it's all they get. It's all they hear. The more voices we can get to speak up on the other side of this, the more people that we can get to stand up for truth, for honesty, for common sense, the better. These people are very loud. We need to be loud in return, but we need to do it with love. That's the difference. They will know we are Christians by our love. I get annoyed by Candace, I won't lie, but I try to show love to people as best I can. I try to show Christian love. I think that's important. I'm not trying to get into a thing saying you shouldn't talk like this. That's not what I'm doing. I mean, I'm probably more brash than some Christians would like, but we just need to let the Holy Spirit convict us. We need to let the Holy Spirit speak through us. We need to be seeking him diligently and asking him, Lord, what is the truth? Be the Lord of my life. Steer the ship, Lord. Jesus, take the wheel. But yeah, when we push back against this, you guys, push back as if you really are submitted to Christ. Because a lot of these people in the Christ is King movement, I will hear them say Christ is King out of one side of their mouth, and out of the other side of their mouth, they're cussing me out. They're calling me all kinds of names. And that right there shows me the spirit of that movement. I'm not saying everybody who says Christ is King acts that way and that they're not actually Christians. I'm just saying that more often than not, that's what I get from that movement. We need to be better than that. Show the love of Christ while pushing back. All right, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for listening. I love you guys. I appreciate you. If you haven't liked or subscribed, please do. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to try to let the Holy Spirit lead me to the best of my ability. And I will see you guys on the next one. Jesus Christ, the name above all names. You heard it here.